I looked at my bank statement again, each transaction a reminder of their contempt. 20 years of hard work, of proving myself, yet they still saw me as beneath them. Today I'm choosing dignity over their approval. Some debts aren't worth the cost to your soul. The 50 million will be mine. You won't get anything. My daughter-in-law spat the words at me, hours after we buried my son. The whole room gasped. They thought I was broken, but I just smiled. They were about to learn that old builders know exactly how to tear things down. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone. My name is Thomas Miller. I'm a builder. I've spent my life understanding foundations. Concrete, steel, wood, things you can trust, things that last. The day we buried my son Daniel, the sky looked like bruised steel. The wind was bitter. It felt right. We stood by the open grave, the earth hard and unforgiving beneath my boots. I watched them lower the casket. My boy was inside, 30 years old, gone. They said it was a sudden aneurysm. No warning, no time to say goodbye. It didn't feel real. Daniel had so much light. He was the one who took my small company, Miller & Son Construction, and turned it into an empire. He was my legacy. The cemetery was crowded. Daniel's employees stood in rows, their heavy work jackets zipped tight against the cold, hard hats held over their hearts. They weren't just staff, they were family. Daniel made sure of that. He built relationships, not just buildings. But standing there, watching the first shovel of dirt hit the polished wood, I felt my own foundation turn to sand. The world tilted. I was sinking. My daughter, Sarah, stood beside me. Her hand gripped my arm, tight. I knew I'd have bruises. Sarah is younger than Daniel, fierce, intuitive. She always saw the truth in people, even when the truth was ugly. She's been the glue holding us together since her mother, Martha, passed away. And then there was Jessica, Daniel's wife of 4 years, the woman he adored, or at least the woman I thought he adored. Jessica stood apart from us, a striking figure draped in expensive black silk that seemed to absorb the weak November light. A heavy lace veil covered her face, like a costume. She leaned dramatically on the arm of a man she introduced as her brother, Kevin. He had a weak chin and eyes that never settled. He kept looking at the crowd, watching the exits. Her sobs were loud, piercing. They cut through the quiet sorrow of the afternoon. They echoed against the old tombstones. They sounded fake. Sarah leaned in. Her breath was hot against my ear. Her voice was tight, vibrating with anger and grief. "It's a performance, Dad," she whispered. "Look at her. She's not crying. She's acting." "Let her be, sweetheart," I murmured. My voice was tired, raw. I didn't have the energy to fight. Not yet. Everyone grieves differently. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe she loved my son. But I knew Sarah was right. My gut twisted. I had watched Jessica for years. She loved what Daniel provided. The sprawling house on the lake, the luxury cars, the social status that came with being Mrs. Daniel Miller. But did she love Daniel, the boy who loved fishing, the boy who still kept his childhood baseball cards in a dusty box under his bed, the boy who called me every Sunday without fail, just to talk about the weather and the work? I wasn't so sure. And that doubt felt like a stone in my gut. A cold, heavy weight that had been sitting there for years. The service ended. The crowd migrated back to my house. The house I built for Martha. Every beam, every nail, driven by my own hands. The house where Daniel and Sarah grew up. It was filled with the smells of casseroles and coffee, the traditional offerings of mourning. I felt like a stranger in my own home. People hugged me, whispered condolences, said, "Sorry." I just nodded. I was numb, floating outside my own body, until the temperature in the room dropped. I saw Mr. Harris by the fireplace. Robert Harris, our family lawyer for 30 years. A good man, steady, kind. He gave me a look that held a depth of sympathy, but also a warning. He knew the storm was coming. I was near the kitchen, talking to Daniel's oldest friend, Mark. Mark looked wrecked. His eyes were bloodshot. He was telling a story about Daniel in high school. I was trying to listen, trying to focus. That's when Jessica made her entrance. She had removed her veil. Her makeup was perfect. Immaculate. Not a single tear track marred the foundation. Her lipstick was a precise blood red. She scanned the room, not like a grieving widow seeking comfort, like a general surveying a battlefield. Kevin, her brother, was right behind her. A shadow, he whispered in her ear. She nodded. A small, satisfied smile played on her lips. The tension in the air was thick, heavy. It wasn't just grief anymore. It was money. Daniel's success was significant. With his recent acquisitions, the land development deal, the assets, the investments, the company's value was around $50 million, a staggering sum, and Jessica was ready to collect. She was circling the prize. She wasn't even going to wait for the body to get cold. Jessica walked straight towards Mr. Harris. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor I had laid myself. Loud, deliberate. She didn't hesitate. "Mr. Harris," she announced. Her voice was loud, cutting through the hushed conversations like a knife. "I believe it's time we discussed the estate." The room went silent, absolutely silent, a suffocating silence. People shifted, looked at their shoes, looked anywhere but at her. The audacity, the timing. We hadn't even finished the coffee. I walked over. My heart pounded with a cold dread. I felt a protective rage building in my chest. "Jessica, please," I said, keeping my voice low, trying to maintain some decency. "Not today. We just buried him. Have some respect." She turned to me. Her eyes were like ice. "We must be practical, Thomas," she said. Her tone dripped with false patience. She looked at me like I was a slow child. "Daniel would have wanted me secure. I am his wife. I need to know where I stand." She wasn't asking. She was demanding. She was staking her claim, and she was enjoying it. The power shift was intoxicating her. Sarah peered at my side, my fierce girl. Her eyes were blazing. "You stand with family," Sarah snapped. Her voice shook with emotion. "How can you even think about money right now? What is wrong with you?" Jessica's veneer cracked. The sophisticated widow disappeared. The viper underneath showed its fangs. "Stay out of this, little girl," she sneered. "This is grown-up business. Business you know nothing about." She turned back to the room. She raised her voice. She wanted an audience for her triumph. "I know some of you might be confused about the succession plan," she announced, projecting to the back of the room. "Let me make it very clear." She looked straight at me. Her eyes were cold, triumphant, empty. She pointed a manicured finger in my direction. Right at my face, a declaration of war. The room held its breath. Kevin smirked from the sidelines, crossing his arms. Jessica paused, savoring the moment. The moment she thought she would take everything I built, everything Daniel built. "The 50 million will be mine," she declared. Her voice echoed in the sudden silence. "You won't get anything." A collective gasp swept through the room. Mark dropped his glass. The sound of shattering crystal echoed the shattering of our fragile peace. My throat tightened. The sheer, naked greed. It was breathtaking. It sucked the air out of the room. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman my son married. She was a stranger, a predator. But I didn't break. I didn't flinch, because I knew something she didn't. Everyone looked at me. They expected rage. They expected devastation. They expected the old man to crumble into dust. But as I looked at Jessica's cruel, smug face, the fog of grief lifted. The sadness was still there. But now there was something else, something harder. It was replaced by a strange, icy calm, a clarity I hadn't felt in days. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the sad, knowing smile of someone holding the final, devastating card. The card she never saw coming. I turned my gaze to Mr. Harris. He was watching me intently. He knew. "Should I say it?" I asked him quietly. "Or would you prefer to?" Mr. Harris sighed, a heavy, weary sound. He looked from me to Jessica's triumphant expression. He took off his glasses, polished them slowly, stepped forward, and said two words that changed everything. "Void marriage." The silence that followed was absolute, deeper than before. A vacuum. Jessica's smile froze, then shattered. The color drained from her face. She looked pale, sickly, like she'd seen a ghost. the ghost of her own lies catching up to her. "What?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, the confidence gone, replaced by fear. "What did you say?" "Void marriage," Mr. Harris repeated. His voice was clear, steady, authoritative. "Your marriage to Daniel Miller was never legal. You were never his wife." Jessica staggered back as if struck. Kevin grabbed her arm, holding her up. His smirk was replaced by sheer panic. His eyes darted towards the door. "That's a lie," she shrieked. The sound was ugly, desperate. "We had a wedding, a license. You were there, Mr. Harris. You signed the papers." "I was," Mr. Harris agreed, his tone calm, factual. "But a legal marriage requires both parties to be free to marry. You, Jessica, were not." He paused, letting the weight of his words crush her. He delivered the final judgment. "You were still married to a Mr. Andrew Thompson." The name hit the room like a shockwave. Bigamy. She wasn't just greedy. She was a criminal. The fraud. "He was supposed to sign the divorce papers." Jessica screamed. Her composure was gone. The mask was off. The ugliness beneath revealed. "He disappeared. I couldn't find him. It wasn't my fault." "That is irrelevant," Mr. Harris stated. "The law is clear. Intent does not matter. Your marriage to Daniel was void from the start. You have no claim to his estate. None." She looked trapped, like a rat in a corner. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, looking for sympathy. She found none. The truth had finally cornered her. Kevin realized their game was over. The long con had failed. He let go of Jessica's arm and started backing towards the kitchen door. He always looked for the exit. "This is ridiculous," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. He was sweating now. "We're leaving. Come on, Jess." "Stay right there, Kevin," I said. My voice rang with an authority I hadn't used in years. The builder was back, and I was ready to demolish their lies. Mark and two of my construction foremen, Frank and Dave, moved to block the exit. They stood like stone walls, loyal, strong. They had loved Daniel. They weren't going anywhere. Loyalty, that's what Daniel built. Daniel knew, I said. My voice cracked. The reality of the past few weeks hit me. The pain was suddenly fresh. Raw. He found out. I remembered the night Daniel came to me. Just 2 weeks ago. It was late. Rain hammered against the windows. He looked haunted, exhausted. His eyes were red. I thought it was stress from the business. The big Oakwood project. I was so wrong. The stress was much closer to home. "Dad, I messed up," he had confessed, his voice trembling. He sat in my study, the lights low. He couldn't look me in the eye. The shame was eating him alive. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Mike. Something felt wrong with Jessica, with Kevin, the way they whispered, the way they looked at the accounts. He paused, his voice breaking. "It's all a lie, Dad. Everything." He had shown me the report. The marriage certificate from Nevada. Andrew Thompson, Jessica's entire backstory. The wealthy family, the European education was fabricated. But that wasn't the worst part. The real betrayal was deeper. Kevin wasn't her brother. He was her partner. A petty criminal with a record for fraud. She brought him in to infiltrate the company, to bleed us dry. He was heartbroken, I said, looking at Jessica. My voice was shaking with rage now. He was preparing to file for an annulment, to press charges. I looked at her cold, dead eyes. He was terrified of what you might do. He was terrified of her, and now he was gone. The timing felt too convenient, too neat. The police arrived. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows. Jessica dissolved into hysteria, screaming accusations. A cornered animal fighting for survival. Kevin just stood there, sullen, defeated. He knew the game was up. As they were led away in handcuffs, the immediate crisis was over. But as the door closed behind them, I looked at the shattered glass on the floor. I knew this was far from finished. The real battle was just beginning, and it was going to get ugly. The days that followed were a blur, grief and grim discovery. The house felt emptier now. Not just because Daniel was gone, but because the illusion of the life he had been living was shattered. The silence was heavy. Mr. Harris, Sarah, and I spent hours in Daniel's study, untangling the web of deceit. It was dark, and it went deep, so deep I feared we might drown in the rot we uncovered. Mr. Harris brought in a forensic accountant, a sharp young woman, ended Miss Evans. She was all business, no emotion, just facts. She tapped her pen on the desk, impatient with the sheer volume of the fraud. They were systematic, Mr. Miller, Miss Evans reported. She laid the spreadsheets out, a map of their betrayal. Kevin, using his position in the finance department, didn't just steal. He laundered. She pointed to a complex web of transactions. He funneled money out through fake invoices, and at least 5 different shell companies. It was sophisticated, far more sophisticated than we initially thought. And Jessica? I asked, dreading the answer. Her spending was astronomical, Miss Evans said. Corporate accounts used for jewelry, cars, trips to Paris, Dubai. She was spending money faster than Kevin could steal it. She looked up at me. Her expression was grim. We're looking at nearly $5 million embezzled over the last 3 years. They accelerated the theft in the last 6 months. $5 million. It was staggering. My life's work, Daniel's success, squandered on lies and luxury. It felt like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thin. Sarah cursed under her breath. They were parasites, Dad. They were bleeding him dry. Miss Evans tapped her pen again. Mr. Miller, to fully substantiate these claims and trace the assets, I need to interview your key employees immediately. She leaned forward. They may have witnessed irregularities. Someone in accounting must have noticed something. The sooner we act, the better our chances of recovering anything. The money trail was going cold, fast. I hesitated. My employees were devastated. Frank, the head of accounting, had been with me for 30 years. He loved Daniel like a son. Dragging them into an interrogation felt cruel. They were still reeling from the funeral, from the arrests. Miss Evans saw my hesitation. Her face remained impassive. Miss Evans, I said, my voice heavy. These people are family. Interrogating them now, it feels like a betrayal of trust. Mr. Miller, she countered, her voice sharp. Their loyalty is commendable, but delay could cost you the entire company. We don't know the full extent of the damage yet. We need information. Now, they need time to grieve, I insisted. Grief doesn't pay the bills, she retorted. And right now, your company is hemorrhaging money. I had to decide. Push hard for swift justice, or prioritize compassion. I thought about what Daniel would do. He always put people first. Give them until the end of the week, I decided. We are a family first, a business second. Miss Evans sighed, frustrated. Understood, Mr. Miller. But this is a significant risk. I was willing to take it, but I knew this choice might be the one that broke us. We needed to build an airtight case, not just for the embezzlement. We had to ensure the annulment was finalized posthumously, protecting Daniel's estate from any further claims by Jessica. She was in jail, but she was already fighting back. Her lawyers were sharks. To finalize the annulment, we needed Andrew Thompson, the missing husband, the key to everything. The private investigator, Mike, tracked him down. A rundown motel in Arizona, a dive bar called the Rusty Spur. He was drinking himself into an early grave. Mr. Harris called him. I listened on speakerphone. The conversation was ugly and dangerous. A gruff voice answered, slurring slightly. Yeah? What do you want, Mr. Thompson?
This is Robert Harris. I represent the estate of Daniel Miller. A dry chuckle. Oh yeah? Jessica finally hit the jackpot, huh? Too bad for the poor sucker she married this time. We need your testimony regarding your marriage, Mr. Harris said, keeping his voice neutral. I know what you need, Thompson interrupted. You need me to sink her ship, and I'm happy to do it. That woman ruined my life. He paused. I could hear the clinking of ice in a glass. But I got debts, dangerous debts, and I need protection. This ain't gonna be cheap. Mr.
Harris hung up the phone. His face was grim. He's willing to testify, but he wants payment. And a lot of it. Payment. Sarah exploded. She was pacing the study like a caged tiger. He's a witness, not a mercenary. This is blackmail. How much? I asked. I was tired of the games. Tired of the greed? He wants $100,000, Mr. Harris said. And he claims he needs it to disappear. He says Jessica has dangerous connections. My stomach churned. $100,000. It was insane. It felt dirty. It felt wrong. We can't pay him. Dad. Sarah insisted. It's immoral. It's rewarding him for his silence. If we don't, Mr. Harris explained, his voice strained, Jessica's lawyers will argue she genuinely believed the divorce was finalized. They will paint her as a victim of circumstance. It could weaken our case significantly. She might get a piece of the estate. It was a moral dilemma, but I thought of Daniel. I thought of Jessica walking away with a single dime of his money. The thought made me sick. Pay him, Robert, I said. The words tasted like ash. We need the truth, no matter the cost. We were buying justice, and it left a stain on my soul. But the stain was nothing compared to the darkness Jessica brought into our lives. While Mr. Harris dealt with illegal nightmares, I focused on the company. Miller's son was in crisis. The scandal had made the national news, bigamy and betrayal in construction empire. Clients were canceling contracts. Suppliers were demanding immediate payment. The bank was threatening to call in our loans. The empire Daniel built was crumbling around me. I went to the main office. The smell of sawdust and fresh paint usually comforted me. Now it felt heavy, oppressive. I sat at Daniel's desk. It felt wrong. I started reviewing the contracts Kevin had managed. I expected theft. I expected incompetence. But what I found was much worse. It was calculated destruction. They weren't just stealing money. They were sabotaging the business. They were deliberately underbidding on major projects, winning the contracts, but knowing the costs would overrun catastrophically. And then they inflated the expenses, pocketing the difference, while the company absorbed the losses. They were driving the company towards insolvency. They were trying to kill it. Why? Why destroy the golden goose? Then it hit me. It was chillingly brilliant. They were planning to force a bankruptcy, force a sale, and then buy the assets back cheap, using the money they stole, erase Daniel's name. Erase my name. It wasn't just greed. It was malice. They wanted to destroy us completely. The biggest crisis was the Oakwood development, our flagship project, a major hotel chain. Daniel's masterpiece. The project manager, Jim, met me on site. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. His face was pale with stress. He chewed nervously on his lip. Mr. Miller, it's a disaster, Jim admitted, running a hand through his messy hair. Kevin messed up the structural orders. We have the wrong grade steel. The concrete pour is delayed. Everything is wrong. What does the client say? I asked, dreading the answer. They're furious, Jim said, his voice trembling. They're threatening to pull out. Today, if they do, the penalties alone will bankrupt us. We're done, Thomas. The company is finished. The walls were closing in. I felt the weight of the entire company pressing down on me. I looked at the half-finished structure, the concrete skeleton reaching towards the sky. This was Daniel's dream. I couldn't let it die. I couldn't let them win. The only way to save the project was to guarantee the costs personally, to cover the immediate shortfall, to reassure the bank. It meant putting up everything, my retirement fund, my savings, the house I built for Martha, the house I was standing in, everything I had left. As collateral, I was 65 years old. I was risking my own ruin. I could end up homeless, penniless, but I had to protect my son's legacy. It was all I had left of him. I called the bank manager, Mr. Henderson, a man I had known for 20 years. Thomas, I can't extend the credit line, Henderson said, his voice sympathetic but firm. The risk profile has changed. The scandal, the embezzlement. The company is toxic. I'll guarantee it personally, I said. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Thomas, that's everything you have, Henderson said, shocked. Your house, your assets, If this project fails, it won't fail, I said with a confidence I didn't feel. Send the papers. I turned back to Jim, the project manager. Do whatever it takes, Jim, I told him, clapping him on the shoulder. Fix the orders, hire extra crews, get the best materials. I'll cover it. Jim looked at me stunned. Thomas, that's millions. Are you sure? Just build it, I said. I walked away before he could see the fear in my eyes. I had just gambled my life on a building, and I wasn't sure I had the winning hand. In the midst of the financial chaos, the emotional toll was devastating. We were trying to grieve Daniel, but the constant revelations about Jessica's betrayal kept reopening the wound. It felt like we were burying him again. Every single day, we couldn't escape the darkness she brought into our lives. One evening, Sarah came into my study. It was dark. I was sitting in the chair, staring at the fire, an empty glass in my hand. She was holding a small, leather-bound book. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands trembling. "Dad," she whispered, "what is it, sweetheart?" "I found this in Daniel's closet," she said, her voice shaking, tucked away in an old shoebox. I think it's his journal." My heart clenched. Daniel's private thoughts, his pain, laid bare on the page. I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face it. I wanted to remember him smiling, happy. Sarah hugged the journal to her chest. "Dad, it's awful," she said, tears streaming down her face. I read some of it. I shouldn't have. The things she said to him, the way she manipulated him. She called him weak, pathetic. She choked on a sob. He was so unhappy. Dad, he was suffering. And we didn't see it. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "I don't want you to read it," she begged. "It will only hurt you more. Please, Dad, don't do this to yourself. It will break your heart." I understood her protective instinct. She wanted to spare me the agony of knowing the full extent of Daniel's suffering, the agony of knowing I failed to protect him. But I needed to know. I needed to understand what my son had. I needed to know the enemy I was fighting. Ignorance wasn't protection. It was weakness. And I couldn't afford to be weak. I gently took the journal from her hands. "Sweetheart, we have to face the truth," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "All it. It's the only way we can truly fight for him." She nodded, sobbing quietly. I held her for a long time. The weight of the journal felt heavy in my hands. Like a tombstone, I read the journal late into the night. The house was silent, the only sound the ticking of the grandfather clock, Daniel's familiar handwriting. It detailed the slow erosion of his happiness, the realization that his marriage was a sham, the isolation, the gaslighting, the emotional abuse. She had convinced him he was losing his mind, that he was paranoid, that he was imagining the problems in the company. He felt trapped, alone, ashamed. The entries grew darker. The stress was radiating from the pages. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't eating. He was crumbling under the pressure. He wrote about chest pains, headaches. "She threatened me," he wrote. The ink was pressed hard into the page, as if he was writing in a frenzy of fear. "She said if I tried to expose her, she would destroy me. She said she would accuse me of abuse, of fraud. She said she would make everyone believe I was crazy. And the worst part, I think they might believe her." His final entry chilled me to the bone. It was dated 3 days before he died. There is a darkness in her that terrifies me. I don't know if I can survive this. The stress is killing me. I feel like my heart is going to explode. The doctors said it was an aneurysm, a ticking time bomb, natural causes. But reading his words, feeling his pain, I knew the truth, the terrible, unspoken truth. Jessica had killed him, maybe not with a gun, but with stress, with fear, with betrayal. She had killed my son, and I was going to make her pay for it. The fight was no longer about money. It was about justice. The legal battle escalated quickly. Jessica, even from jail, fought with a ferocity that was terrifying. She wasn't going down without a fight. She hired a high-powered defense attorney, a ruthless man named Mr. Stone, known for his scorched earth tactics. He was a shark in an expensive suit. The kind of lawyer guilty people hire, paid for with the money she had stolen from Daniel. The irony was sickening. A smear campaign began. Articles appeared in the tabloids, painting Jessica as the victim. Grieving widow robbed by vindictive father-in-law. They twisted Daniel's character, suggested he was the manipulative one, the paranoid one, the cruel one. They used his journal entries out of context, making him sound unstable. They painted me as a greedy tyrant. They were trying to destroy his memory, to win in the court of public opinion before the trial even started. Mr. Harris warned me it would get worse. Stone doesn't care about the truth, Thomas, he said, looking tired. We were meeting late at his office. The strain was showing on him, too. He cares about winning, and he plays dirty. Very dirty. And he did. He came for the thing I loved most. The thing I held sacred. One afternoon, Mr. Stone cornered me outside the courthouse. After a preliminary hearing, he was a slick man, a predatory smile that never reached his eyes. He always stood too close. Mr. Miller, he said, his voice smooth as silk. A word, if I may. I stopped. I didn't want to talk to him, but I wouldn't run from him either. We are prepared to offer a settlement, he said, adjusting his expensive tie. A small fraction of the estate, $5 million, and my client walks away. No criminal charges. It's a generous offer. He leaned in closer, invading my space.
It would be wise to accept. Save yourself the pain of a public trial. Trials can be so unpredictable and messy.
She gets nothing, I said. My voice was cold, dead. She deserves prison for life. Mr. Stone's smile widened. A pity, because we have information that might be embarrassing for your family. He paused, letting the threat hang in the air. I knew what was coming, and it terrified me more than losing the company. Something about your late wife, Martha, he said casually, as if discussing the weather. A hospitalization many years ago. Mental instability, wasn't it? Psychosis? My blood ran cold. The world tilted. Martha, my beautiful Martha. She had suffered from severe depression after Daniel was born, postpartum psychosis. It was brutal, debilitating. She had been hospitalized briefly. It was the hardest time of our lives. It was a private pain, a family secret we had guarded fiercely. Martha was so ashamed of it. She made me promise never to tell anyone. I was stunned by the cruelty. They were willing to drag Martha's memory through the mud, to tarnish her name, to expose her deepest vulnerability. Just to win a case, just for money. I had to choose. Protect my wife's memory, the sanctity of her struggle, or pursue justice for my son. If this story has touched you, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this to light. It was that moment I realized the depths of their depravity. Mr. Stone waited, his predatory smile fixed in place. He thought he had me cornered. He thought I would break to protect Martha. The silence stretched between us, heavy and toxic. The noise of the city faded away. So, Mr. Miller, Stone whispered, his voice laced with triumph. Do we settle, or do we tell the world that the Miller family is built on a foundation of madness? That your son inherited his mother's instability? My hands shook, my vision blurred with rage. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to scream. How dare he? How dare he speak her name? I felt the shame rising in me, the urge to hide, to protect her secret. But then I thought of Martha, her strength, her courage. She fought that darkness and won. She was not something to be ashamed of. I looked at Mr. Stone. My resolve hardened. I found a strength I didn't know I had. Martha's strength. My wife, I said, my voice clear and strong, cutting through the silence, was the strongest woman I ever knew. She fought a battle you can't even imagine, and she won. I stepped closer to him until we were face to face. I could smell his expensive cologne. It smelled like decay. You do your worst, Mr. Stone, I said, my voice low and dangerous. We will not settle, not for a single dime. And if you mention my wife's name again, I will destroy you. Stone's smile faltered. Just for a second, he wasn't used to people fighting back. He saw something in my eyes that scared him. He turned and walked away without another word. But I knew the war had just become very personal and very dangerous. The trial approached. The media circus intensified. We were preparing our witnesses, gathering the mountain of evidence against Jessica and Kevin. The financial sabotage, the embezzlement, the bigamy. Andrew Thompson arrived, sullen and greedy. But he was sober and ready to testify. He had his $100,000. He didn't care about justice. He just cared about the money. But his testimony was vital. But there was one witness I was worried about. The one witness who could truly destroy Jessica. The one who could speak to Daniel's state of mind. Mark, Daniel's best friend. He had been present during several confrontations between Daniel and Jessica. He heard the threats. He saw the abuse. His testimony was crucial. It would give life to the words in Daniel's journal. It would prove the emotional distress that killed him. 2 days before the trial, Mark called me. It was late. His voice was shaking. "Thomas, I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. He sounded terrified, broken. "Mark, what's wrong?" "You have to testify. You promised." "Daniel needs you." "I'm getting threats," he whispered. "Serious threats." "Threats? From whom?" I asked, alarmed. My stomach tightened. I knew the answer before he said it. "Frings, Kevin's associates," he said. "From his past. The people he ran with before Jessica. They're not just petty criminals, Thomas. They're dangerous." "What happened?" "They know where I live," he said, his voice breaking. "They showed up at my house tonight. They didn't break in. They just stood outside, watching." My heart hammered in my chest. "Did they talk to you?" "They threatened my family," he said, crying now. "My wife, my kids. They said if I testify, I will regret it. They said accidents happen. They said they would hurt them." He was sobbing. "I have to protect them, Thomas. I can't risk it. I'm sorry. I can't do it." My heart sank. Without Mark's testimony, our case against Jessica for emotional abuse and extortion would be significantly weakened. The journal wasn't enough on its own. We needed a living witness. We needed him. I couldn't blame him. I would do anything to protect my family. But I couldn't let fear win. I couldn't let them silence the truth. I couldn't let them get away with murder. "I'm coming over," I said. I drove to his house. The streets were quiet, dark, but the darkness felt alive now, threatening. Mark was pacing in his living room. His wife was sitting on the couch, pale and terrified. Their kids were asleep upstairs, unaware of the danger circling them. "Thomas." "I'm sorry," Mark said, his eyes red and desperate. "I want to help. I love Daniel, but my kids, I can't put them in danger. You have to understand." I looked at him. I understood his fear, but I also knew his strength. I knew his loyalty. "Mark," I said, "I will hire security around the clock. Former police officers. We will protect your family. I promise you, you will not be alone. We will keep them safe." But that wasn't enough. He needed more than promises. He needed a reason to fight. A reason stronger than fear. "Daniel needed you," I said, my voice rough with emotion. "He trusted you. He was your best friend. He needs you to be strong now. He needs you to speak the truth. He needs you to be his voice." I told him about the journal, about Daniel's fear, about how Jessica had systematically destroyed him, how the stress had killed him. "We cannot let them get away with this," I pleaded. "We cannot let them silence us. If we let fear win, they win, and Daniel's death means nothing." I looked him straight in the eye. "We fight, Mark. Together. For him." Mark looked at his wife. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. She was terrified, but she was strong. He looked at a picture of him and Daniel on the mantel, fishing, smiling, young, full of hope. He took a deep breath. He straightened his shoulders. The fear in his eyes was replaced by determination. "Okay, Thomas," he said, his voice stronger now. "I'll do it. For Daniel." The trial was a spectacle. The courtroom was packed. The atmosphere thick with anticipation. Reporters lined the hallways. Cameras flashed. It felt like a circus. a grotesque circus of grief and greed. Jessica took the stand, dressed in a conservative gray suit, her hair pulled back. The picture of a wronged woman. She was good. Very good. A masterful performance. The performance of a lifetime. She wept. She pleaded. She painted a convincing picture of a loving wife, betrayed by a paranoid husband, and a greedy family trying to steal her inheritance. She claimed Daniel was unstable, that he imagined the bigamy, that Andrew Thompson was a lie I fabricated to get the money, that I had manipulated Daniel into believing the lies. It was sickening to watch her lie so easily, so convincingly. Her lawyer, Mr. Stone, was masterful, twisting the facts, creating doubt, suggesting the evidence was planted, that I had orchestrated the whole thing. He made me sound like a monster, a puppet master who destroyed his own son for money. He cross-examined me, attacking my character, questioning my motives. "Miss Miller," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "you claim to be a grieving father, but isn't it true that you resented your son's success, that you wanted the company back, that you saw his death as an opportunity?" "No," I said firmly. "I was proud of him. He was better than me. I loved him." Then he played his trump card. Just as he had threatened, he didn't hesitate. "Let's talk about your wife, Martha," he said, turning to the jury. His voice softened, full of false sympathy. "She was hospitalized for mental illness, wasn't she? Institutionalized for psychosis," the courtroom murmured. I felt Sarah stiffen beside me. I saw the pity in the jurors' eyes. "Objection!" Mr. Harris shouted. "Relevance? This is cruel and unnecessary. It has nothing to do with the case. It goes to the family history of instability." "Your Honor," Mr. Stone said smoothly, "we believe Daniel inherited his mother's condition. Paranoia runs in the family. It explains his erratic behavior, his delusions about his wife. The judge allowed it. A cruel blow. A devastating blow. I sat there, enduring the humiliation, my eyes fixed on the jury. I spoke the truth about Martha, about her strength, her recovery, her love. My wife was ill, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was breaking. She sought help, and she recovered. Her struggles do not define her, and they certainly do not define my son. But the damage was done. The doubt was planted. I could see it in the jurors' eyes. They weren't sure anymore. Then Mr. Harris took the floor for the defense. He was calm, methodical. He presented the evidence with surgical precision. The marriage certificate with Andrew Thompson, undeniable proof of bigamy, the bank records detailing the embezzlement, the forensic audit, the fake invoices, the shell companies, the $5 million, the calculated sabotage of the company. It was a mountain of evidence, indisputable. Andrew Thompson testified. He was crude, unapologetic, but he confirmed the marriage was never dissolved. He pointed at Jessica. "She's my wife, always has been. She just wanted a bigger paycheck, and she didn't care who she had to destroy to get it." Mark, finding his courage, took the stand. His voice shook at first, but he grew stronger. He recounted the threats, the abuse Daniel had endured, the fear in his friend's eyes, the desperation. He was compelling. He was honest. He was brave. But Jessica's performance was strong. Mr. Stone had created enough doubt. The jury was wavering. I could feel it. The idea that Daniel was mentally unstable had taken root. We needed a miracle. We needed something undeniable. And then we got one. The final card. The one Daniel had left us. The voice from the grave. "Your Honor," Mr. Harris said, turning to the judge. His voice was louder now, confident. "I have one last piece of evidence." I looked at him, confused. What else could there be? We had presented everything. "A video deposition," Mr. Harris announced, "recorded by Daniel Miller, 3 days before his death." I gasped. "A video?" Daniel had never mentioned a video. Sarah grabbed my hand. Her grip was tight. Mr. Harris explained. Daniel, fearing for his safety, fearing that Jessica might do something drastic, wanting to ensure the truth came out, no matter what happened to him, had recorded a formal deposition at Mr. Harris's office. He knew she might kill him. He was protecting us, even from the grave. My smart, brave boy. The lights dimmed. Screen was lowered, and there he was. Daniel, my son. My heart stopped. It felt like he was in the room with us. It was agonizing. It was beautiful. He looked tired, the shadows under his eyes dark, but his voice was strong and clear. He was calm, rational, sane. He spoke for nearly an hour, laying out the entire sordid story. The discovery of the bigamy, the embezzlement, the threats, the sabotage of the company. He spoke of his heartbreak, his fear, his determination to protect his legacy, to protect his family. I am recording this, he said, his voice steady, because I believe my life is in danger. Jessica and Kevin will stop at nothing to silence me. The stress is overwhelming, but I am not crazy. I am not paranoid. He looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with a profound sadness. Jessica is a fraud, he said. She never loved me. She only loved the money. He paused, taking a shaky breath. I want her to get nothing. Everything I have, everything I built. I leave to my father, Thomas, and my sister, Sarah. He looked straight into the lens, straight into my soul. They are my true family. Dad, Sarah, I love you. The silence that followed was absolute. The courtroom was still. The only sound, the quiet weeping of Sarah beside me. I was crying too, tears streaming down my face. My boy, he was so strong, so brave. He had the final word. He had exposed the truth for everyone to see. Jessica's mask crumbled. The facade of the grieving widow evaporated, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. She glared at the screen, at Daniel's image, her face contorted in rage. Mr. Stone closed his briefcase. He didn't even try to object. He didn't look at his client. He knew the fight was over. Daniel had won. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. The verdict was swift, decisive. The marriage was declared void. Jessica and Kevin were found guilty. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Justice had been served. Jessica was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Kevin, who took a plea deal and testified against her regarding the sabotage in his criminal connections, received 8 years. The victory was complete. We had won. We had protected Daniel's legacy. But as I walked out of the courthouse, the flashing lights of the cameras blinding me, I felt no triumph, no joy, only an overwhelming exhaustion, and a profound sadness. Daniel was still gone, and nothing could bring him back. The victory felt hollow. The $50 million, it felt like blood money, tainted by the greed and betrayal that had cost my son his life. I didn't want it. I didn't want any of it. I couldn't continue running the company. It was too painful, too filled with memories of Daniel, of the dreams we shared. Every corner of the office was haunted by his ghost. The Oakwood development was completed, thanks to the dedication of the employees and the injection of my personal funds. I got my house back. The company stabilized, its reputation slowly recovering. But my heart wasn't in it anymore. The builder had lost his passion. I decided to sell Miller & Son, but I didn't sell it to a competitor. I didn't sell it to the highest bidder. I sold it to the employees, to Jim, to Frank and Dave, to the people who built it, the people who loved Daniel, the people who stood by me when everything was falling apart. I structured the deal so they could buy it over time, ensuring that the legacy of the company remained in the hands of the family. I used the proceeds, along with Daniel's investments in life insurance, to establish the Daniel's Light Foundation, a foundation dedicated to helping victims of fraud and emotional abuse, a place where people who had been betrayed, who had lost everything, could find support, legal assistance, and a chance to rebuild their lives. A place where the darkness couldn't win, a place where Daniel's light could shine. A year later, I stood at the opening ceremony of the foundation. The building was beautiful, filled with light and hope. I looked at the portrait of Daniel, hanging on the wall. He was smiling, that bright, hopeful smile I remembered so well. The smile that Jessica had tried to extinguish, Sarah stood beside me, holding her newborn son. She had named him Daniel. "He would be so proud of you, Dad," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I looked at my grandson, his face innocent and full of promise. I felt a wave of healing wash over me, the first real peace I had felt in years. The grief was still there. It would always be there, but it no longer consumed me. "He is proud of us," I said, my own tears finally falling. Tears of sadness, but also of hope. I realized then that true wealth isn't the fortune you accumulate, but the good you do with it. The legacy you leave behind isn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touch. Jessica had destroyed her life, and Daniel's, in pursuit of $50 million. But in the end, she got nothing. And I, the old builder, had found a way to build something new, had something lasting, something that honored the memory of my son. A foundation built not on sand, but on love. "Your legacy is safe, son," I whispered, looking at Daniel's portrait. "Your light is still shining. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot because your time matters.